that for free there. But still, there's the strive to be drawn, and with Shyvana Heimin, there's no counter to Shyvana Heimin from the Druid. It's only just a painful scenario of having to run a mid-sized minion and a silence, or a mid-sized minion, and then trade twice, or you know, throw away a wrath or something. It costs about 10 mana usually to get rid of it effectively.
Yeah, exactly.
But
there's the swipe.
The value, yeah.
It's gonna be so key. But you know what? The problem is, like, there's still so many minions. Like, the swipe doesn't do as much as it should. Like, you can get rid of the 1/1s, and I guess you can either get rid of Huffer, but there's still gonna be like the spiders that come out of the Haunted Creepers, and there's still gonna be the 2 hyenas that come out of the Shyvana Heimin.
I think the key is going to be the Feasting Trap, because you can't both bust up the Hunter Creeper and kill the Highmane in this case.
Yeah, and you have to feel like you have to go for the Highmane, right?
I actually need to go for the Hunter Creeper.
But you know the Amaz rule. In fact, Amaz knows the Amaz rule. The Amaz rule is if Highmane goes for face once, then you die. Like, you just
The thing is though, what's going to be scarier? A Heifer plus two minions, or a one Shyvana, and you still keep your 5/5 alive. That's my thinking. That well, let's see what Amaz goes for. Does he swipe first? Okay, and he goes face. Oh, okay, that's actually not bad. I don't mind that at all. Yeah, I like this better for sure. Well played, Tomas, for freaking that up, man. Yeah.
So
now we can possibly combo him down next turn if he draws it, but it's... And
Deathlord might put a stop to that. So there's not actually any charge minions that can come out of the Deathlord, so even if he gets Drew the Claw out, that won't be able to do any charging damage.
That's true, I guess possibly Rag would be the best. But in general, what's possible here? Gonna have to get a good card from the Deathlord. Maybe Belcher could be...
If only Amaz had an Innervate. Yeah, you have to feel like Amaz, it's either taunt or bust at this point, and even if there's a taunt, it still probably is game over.
That's true. Let's see, what does he get from that? Ever so tricky Deathlord, let's see. Pilot Shredder.
See, there's not even a way to kill your Pilot Shredder in case something happens there.
You're not thinking about double Savage Roar, Big Game Hunter into a stable Ghoul?
Very possible. How could I forget? But you know what? Now, there's an IRB Gal, so the game's over.
A 2-2, and what decks are we talking about would be the tricky ones for Amaz and Gaara? Gaara's Warlock and Amaz's Druid. And we're actually going to see those two decks face off in game number 5.
Yeah.
For the last slot in the round of 8.
Yeah, you predicted this exact situation, Kaldi, that these would be the 2 weak decks from both players, and it just happens to play out the exact same way, so props to you, Kaldi. What a brilliant analysis.
Thank you. Let's see, so the Maligos against Druid, generally it's decent for the Maligos, but the problem is that there's no Blackwing Corruptors, and those are the key cards for the Maligos. I mean, what I'm saying is that Gaara isn't running those cards now. Walgeld is an auto keep, and I think the Keeper of the Grove is probably going to be kept as well, yeah. Nothing kept for the Gaara though.
For the Gaara. Gaara, how has he done with this deck so far? He's definitely gotten 1 win. How many games did he lose in the first series?
I believe he's lost, I think it's like 1-4 or something. 1-3.
1 and 3? No, he definitely lost 3 matches against Life Coach with this deck, right?
Oh yeah, let me see how matches. So 3 against Life Coach. I think he won 1 against our friend Board Control, and now he's lost at least 2. Is it? We'll make him 1-5. Yeah.
Ooh, not a good position to be in with your Gaara. I mean, the thing is, like, Gaara, he's seen that this deck has done so well at DreamHack Summer, but he's made about like 5 or 6 card changes, and now this deck has done horribly for him. So he might just be regretting those changes at the moment.
For sure here. I did play that tournament and I faced Impact who had Mali Lock. I faced Jackie who had Mali Lock. I faced Hawkeye as well who had Mali Lock. So definitely the deck of the tournament there did do quite well. But thankfully I had a Rogue, and Rogue seems to be the answer. As well as Sue tends to be the answer. Nice player from Amaz, I like this. Not the worst. I think Gaara's hand is excellent. He has everything you could want. Both Twilight Drakes, the Belcher, Emperor Thors, and most importantly, and the Shadow Flame, which is a key card.
Yeah, we were talking about how this deck often struggles to curve out. It doesn't have too many 3-drops. In fact, only 3 3-drops. It only has 2 4.
Almost plays like a control warrior, the way Gaara's playing it, with a limited burst, you have the Alexstrasza, you have the mid-range stuff. Instead of Despite there's going to be a Twilight Drake, both playing Belchers, both with some AoE from Shadow Flame and Brawl, so that Wild Growth is not what Mars wants to be seeing.
Yeah. Now, you argue that it's somewhat like Control Warrior. I argued before that it was actually a lot like Freeze Mage, because you have the heals, you have like the board clears, and with this deck it's almost like the board clears are the minions instead of spells. And you also have the finishing off combos with like Soulfire, Dark Bomb, Malagos, and of course you have the Alexstrasza in both decks to preempt the final damage.
It's both quite similar. The thing is, it's mixing in minions and control, kind of the way as a warrior does. But of course, Freeze Mage does that as well. Now, I mean, it seems to be a scenario that a lot of decks are going for: burst, Emperor, board control, and a lot of draw. And it's been working great. So many decks going for that at the moment. Now, this is actually not a bad turn for Emperor Thorson. I mean, it's fine to get the Malikos, discounted, but with this case, on turn 10, you can burst him down with both Soulfire and the Dark Bomb. So Dark Bomb, Malikos, and Soulfire are the key cards to get discounted.
Yeah, exactly. I've seen a lot of Malagos Warlocks. This is kind of counterintuitive, but when they don't have Dark Bomb, Soulfires, or Mal'Ganis in their hand, and it's turn 6 on like even an empty board, sometimes they just don't play the Emperor Thors in, because it's so much more important to get those specific cards discounted.
It's kind of like not playing Ancient of Lore, If you don't need to, it's often better to go for a 6-drop or Dr. Boom, because the board presence of a 5/5 isn't comparable to Dr. Boom or something along those lines. So definitely, if you have the option for let's say a Black and Corruptor, for example, or tap and Twilight Drake, you often rather go for that than a Emperor. Like turn 7 tap 5-drop, turn 6 tap 4-drop. That's definitely what you want to be looking at in this deck.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, is it possible that we might see a Shadow Flame here? And it was definitely Gaara was definitely hovering that, but instead he goes for somewhat of a more defensive play, I guess, in some ways. But now there's a really easy trade from Amaz, so I think what Gaara's trying to do, he's trying to set up a good Shadow Flame for the next turn.
It seems to be maybe around 10 or 11. It gets to the awkward point where the Druid has, let's say, 3 minions and is threatening lethal with the combo. And then we saw with the life cuts and I believe it was Gaara as well. Life cuts and Amaz. I mean, in that close scenario, we just need the Shadow Flame to win, and Druid has to play around Shadow Flame. So I think keeping the Shadow Flame as long as possible is the way to go. But might be decent now even.
I mean, that's a pretty good draw. Defender Vargas lets him get a good trade into the Ancient of Lore, and now he doesn't have to use the Shadow Flame. He can keep on developing his board, force his opponent to take care of his board for you, and just draw deeper down into your deck into Malygos.
I think no matter what you do, you're gonna be tapping. That's at least my point of view on this. Because if you don't tap, you're gonna be running out of cards, and if you basically next turn, I mean.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair point. I like to see the tap as well.
The thing though is, Gaara tends to draw Alexstrasza early, and it kinda hasn't been working out for him like that. I mean, there's always been 2 or 3 dead cards in his hand, and at this point he's drawing an excellent hand, thankfully.
But you know what? Like, Gaara, he's drawn an excellent hand in the beginning of the game, but it's still not working out too well for him. How crazy is that? Like, he's still not in a dominating position.
The thing to note though is that, you know, it hasn't been bad for Amaz so far, even though his hand right now is weak. Up to this point it's been decent. Now, guess he wish he could go for that wild growth for the draw. I mean, swipe is not bad though.
It's not bad, but it's not good either, just based on, like, what you have in your hand. The question is now, does Amaz actually go for, like, the tempo BGH? Because you know, like, if Amaz has been watching the past broadcasts, he knows Gaara has 2 Molten Giants and an Alexstrasza in his deck. But is it ever going to come to the point where Gaara is able to use those cards?
I would definitely go for the BGH if I didn't know that there was going to be a Molten coming up. But if he was going to go for the BGH, he would have to trade into the 2-2.
But I think with this play, it definitely shows that Amaz has been watching the broadcast. But okay, no, he plays the BGH anyway.
Hellfire about perfect here. I think you tap again though. Molten Giant. An average card. It basically takes the question out of if you can Hellfire or not, but I don't think you can add anything more onto that. Now, realistically, for Gaara, he will be in no position to play the Molten Giant next to him with a tap. Put him down to, what is it, 16 health, tap, Molten Giant Taunt, possibly tap Molten Giant Shadow Flame even, but that will obviously leave him vulnerable to combo. So he's at 16 health now, going for the, definitely for the Ancient of Lore, plus the Wild Growth. I think the scenario is if he gets any, like a keeper, it still wouldn't be as good. I mean, generally the scenario is that there's going to be 2 heal bots in Gaara's hand. We also know about the Alexstrasza, so that's another thing to add on. But now we have the option of Molten Giant. I kinda like Molten Giant, Soulfire, Mortal Coil here. I think Soulfire is going to have to come down at some point, but if he had the Malygos, this would be like the textbook example of a Malygos Mortal Coil turn for insane value. But I mean, like, if he loses the Owl, it's not a big deal. If he loses the Sunfury, it's going to be a big deal. So maybe just throw out the Molten, the Sunfury, and then go for the Soulfire. Maybe have to get greedy and not Mortal Coil first. I think he's behind, so it's going to be something he'll have to do. Does go for the safe route here. Drops out the abusive, not much value gonna get from that later on. I'm surprised why you would rather keep the abusive in hand than the Shadow Flame. It's interesting. But from Amaz's point of view, there's, you know, a second BGH. It's close to lethal. I think Dr. Boom even might just be too much for Gaara to handle. So Amaz is looking to take this series here out. seems like we have lost Monk. In this call here, let's see. So Gaara does tap, he gets the... He does end up getting the Molten, the second Molten, and the heal bot, but we see Amaz finishing this off. 3-2 to Amaz, well played. Amaz joins Life Coach in the round of 8.
Yeah, well played from Amaz indeed. He had I think throughout the whole day, I think Amaz actually played pretty well overall, especially against board control, where he was at a disadvantage in the Zoo mirror, but he actually eked it out because of his better play with Zoo. And I kind of feel like in this series overall, I feel like Amaz kind of outplayed Gaara in a way that perhaps even in the deck building stage, maybe Gaara's decision to bring those Molten Giants instead of the more mid-rangey creatures like the Azure Drake and the Blackwing Corruptor kind of hurt him in the end.
I feel overall, with Amaz, it's been a little bit back and forth. I think that he was a bit shaky against Life Coach, and then did kind of get outplayed there. He demolished board control and did outplay him, and then, in my opinion, it was a very even match. It was always going to come down to the matchups. It gave us, a slight edge to Amaz with the decks just off the bat, but he does end up taking it 3-2, so interesting to see how this goes. I guess not an upset. Archon winning, Life Coach, I guess everyone was expecting him to take the first. So Life Coach does take first in this series. Amaz in second, Gaara in third, and board control, the qualified player, coming in fourth.
Yeah, not an upset. Are you saying Archon is better than Tempo Storm? Your words, Caldy. Your words, Caldy.
Not
Your
at all.
words.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I think that's about wraps it up for today. We're going to have a great series of matches tomorrow. In fact, we're going to have Group D of the Star Ladder kickoff season, and it'll include some pretty good names like Force and like Firebat. I think we're saying it right now.
Yeah, Ranman, yeah, and Tyson L. I think I'm really looking forward to see Forsen against Ranman. I've been casting him before against the qualified players, and the games tend to be so much fun, seeing that, as he has to play quite aggressively, and the open qualified players tend to play aggressively as well, so it gets often very interesting. But overall, Amaz and Life Coach making it through to the round of 8, joining Colento, Strive Crow, Lostov in that round of 8 stacked tournament here in the Star Ladder. So I guess thank you guys for tonight. Been a pleasure casting here, and looking forward to see you tomorrow for the Group D.
Yep. Well, I think that's it for today. I just have to repeat, I've had a great time casting today with you, Caldy, and definitely check out both today's VODs and tomorrow's games. We'll see you